foreign, predatory, parasitic corporations are replacing our natural environment with an industrial landscape of wind turbines. One Nation will stand against sending children down a path of drug dependency and body mutilation to appease the gender cult. Leave our kids alone. The Trusted Digital Identity Bill is a global surveillance and control mechanism that profit-hungry corporations and power-mad politicians drafted and crafted. One Nation opposes this inhuman, dystopian future that the United Nations promotes as the Great Reset, and we condemn this Parliament for signing on to it. I called for Australia to reject the World Economic Forum's Great Reset and instead mount a great resist. Just like the koalas being euthanized to make way for wind turbines, or damaged solar panels leaking toxic heavy metals into waterways, the United Nations net zero plan again involves killing the environment to save it. I've been speaking about the fear, the oppression and the inhuman cruelty of our COVID response since July 2020. I promised to hound down those responsible, and I will continue relentlessly to keep that promise. You're about to be live with me, Senator Malcolm Roberts. We're back, and the picture's moving and all. Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yeah, looks like audio's good.
Good, and can Sheena hear me?
We'll wait till the people start chatting to us.
Okay.
Just give us a thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. So sorry about that. My sincere apologies for delaying, but we need to get it right. We've been adding so many things that it just becomes a new discovery every week. So hopefully we've got it sorted out now. Anyway, as I said, today is Thursday, and I'm doing the live stream now because Friday I'll be at the Medicinal Cannabis Conference on a panel for politicians. So I'm looking forward to that. Medicinal cannabis is something that we really need to push, and One Nation has been pushing it, well, since before Pauline was in the Senate. Okay, first up, Heroes Gallery again, citizens active in democracy. First of all, the South Australian election candidates and the whole team led by Cory Bernardi and Carlos Caremba. You know, you can tell there were so many people in the room from different backgrounds. There were Liberal Party executives, former Liberal Party executives who'd retired from the Liberal Party, given up some 50 years in the Liberal Party and just so disillusioned with the Liberal Party. But Cory Bernardi told Pauline that the campaign launch was the best he'd ever had. The energy was phenomenal, said Cory. He'd never experienced anything like it. So, he's been through many campaign launches, state and federal, with the Liberal Party, and prior to him leaving the Liberal Party, and he said there's nothing like the energy he experienced last Saturday. And for a campaign launch, I spoke about Marie Strong, a national and international issue, which really... South Australia has got the highest electricity prices in the country, by far. And it's also, we have got one of the highest electricity prices in the world as a country. So South Australia is doing it really tough. Businesses are hurting, workers are hurting, everyone's hurting. Cost of living is out of control. So what I talked about was the whole fact that underpins everything to do with the climate scam, the climate fraud, the energy scam. And these climate parasites, these climate prostitutes are feeding off something that a man named Marie Strong started, the climate fraud. And he's dead. He died in 2015, but he is a psychopathic nut job, a psychopathic crook. And after making money for himself, seeking to make himself a billionaire from carbon dioxide trading. But we'll have a session on Marie Strong because he's at the guts of it all. So what my point is, that we have got to take back control of our energy sector as Australians, as South Australians, so that we get control of our energy again and make it work for us instead of us working for the climate prostitutes. Second heroes I want to discuss One Nation supporters and candidates and volunteers for the past 30 years. You have been so loyal. Some have come and gone, but most of you have stayed. So what we're doing now is bringing down the Liberal Party and Labor Party, the Uni Party facade. They've both been pushing the same policies. We've had 7 decades of political facades, and the status quo is now ending. So you beauty. The new Guardian Essential poll shows that nearly 60% of Australians, including almost half of Labor's current base, would consider voting for One Nation at the next federal election. Now that's just a poll, but It gives enormous encouragement. But people are waking up to the political facade that's been in charge for the last 7 decades in this country. Liberal and Labor pretended to be different, but they're really the same. So, pardon my voice, I've got a bit of a cold coming on. So if you can read that there. There are 2 other shocks in this poll. First, Labor has lost 12% of even its own voters at the last election to One Nation, dragging the Albanese government's support down to an embarrassing 29%. Lowest ever, lower than any Labor vote in any federal election since the first back in 1901. That's amazing. People are waking up. And I want to also list Andrew Bolt as a hero because he came out swinging and defended Pauline. So One Nation's continued rise has delivered Labor its worst polling results since 1901, 29%. One Nation has just done something no other Conservative Party has ever been able to do. Never. Listening to the people of Australia, across Australia, means opposing and exposing Labor and the coalition, the Liberal National Coalition, on mass immigration, net zero, housing, government waste. It's phenomenal what's going on in Canberra. The waste is just amazing. And promoting Australian values first. Aussies now are taking big chunks off Labor. So as I said, I want to label Andrew Bolt and appreciate Andrew Bolt for being a hero because he's helping democracy by telling the truth. This is what Pauline actually asked about Muslims. Bolt said, saying Pauline said there are no good Muslims is a lie. It is a flat lie. Pauline said, quote, I've got no time for the radical Islam. No time for the radical Islam. Their religion concerns me because what it says in the Quran, they hate Westerners, and that's what it's all about. They hate Westerners. You know, she went on, you say, well, there are good Muslims out there. Well, I'm sorry, how can you tell me there are good Muslims? How can you differentiate between the good Muslims and the Islamic extremists? In her interview later with Sharri Markson, she confirms she agrees there are good Muslims. She confirmed that. So the press is actually lying. On Chris Kenny, also on Sky News, she later said, quote, if there is a person out there who is a Muslim and does not support Sharia law, female circumcision, child marriages, who supports our culture, our way of life, our laws, then I apologize to you if my comment has offended you. There, you couldn't have it any clearer. She's given an apology, and she's made it very, very clear that she is opposed to radical Islam. So the media lying, that is what we can expect a lot more of in the coming months, because we've scared the Labor Party and the Liberal Party and the Nationals and the Greens, and so they'll all come at us together. There's so many patterns that we can see. They keep repeating the same things, and we'll talk more about them. Rowan Dean's another hero for calling out Murray Watt and for the Bureau of Meteorology in relation to my Senate estimates questions, excuse me, regarding the extreme weather warnings. I'm getting a cold, so thank you, Rowan, for calling that out. And also another hero is Adam Crichton, who did a fabulous job. I keep praising him because he did a fabulous job in COVID. He was outspoken during COVID, and right from the start, excuse me, Adam's a very good journalist and knows his materials. And he's an economist by training, so he's got the facts with him. Oh, he talked about our policies. That's right, I couldn't see the fine print on the Facebook post. But he talked about our policies. And I want to mention something about our policies. They're all costed, integrated and holistic. We came up with the policies in my office. Pauline interrogated us over them, asked really sensible questions, sharpened it up a little bit, and then we put them out for the May election last January actually. They've all been costed. They're fully integrated. A key part of the policies was putting $40 billion of your money. It's taxpayer money, not government money. There's no such thing as government money. So put $40 billion of taxpayer money back in taxpayers' pockets, back in your pockets. Where does it come from? It comes from more than $90 billion of savings by shutting down various departments. For example, the Climate Change and Energy Department. Complete waste of time. Shutting it down will actually increase the revenue in the country because it'll make the country more can you come back a bit? Yeah. Make the country more efficient. Many of our policies were copied by other parties, from micro parties through to the Liberals, through to the Labor. Or they pretended to copy. They could see that the people liked their policies. Because where did the policies come from? Our policies came from listening to the people of Australia, right across Australia. That's why we were in touch. And they pretended sometimes to copy because they want to be seen to be doing the right thing, not doing the right thing. And let's talk about the grievance party. I think the Greens and the Nationals have said, One Nation is just a grievance party. Well, there's plenty to grieve about in this country. There is a hell of a lot to grieve about in this country. But we also, not only do we talk about the grievances that people have, that you have, the people across Australia have, we talk about the fact that there are so many positives in this country that we would like to build upon and extend and blossom in this country. Another hero, two heroes of mine this week, Natalie Davis and Zion Atig, our candidates in Wright electorate in the federal election and McPherson on the Gold Coast. And Wright goes right down to the Gold Coast. So there are two Gold Coast electorates, and they're working to put together a seminar, conference, symposium, whatever you want to call it. They wanted me to speak, Ian Plimer to speak, Peter Ridd to speak. And I thought, yeah, no problem. And all three of us agreed. But we thought, let's make it more broader to show people why they're hurting so much in this country because of climate fraud. So we're going to bring in economics, bring in the donations of the activists that are coming mainly from overseas, hundreds of millions of dollars coming from overseas activists and institutions to cripple our country. Talk about the environmental damage, talk about the economic damage, talk about the censorship bill that is coming up, the censorship bill that is being pushed from the United Nations top man, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General. Now, Natalie wanted to originally do it in April, and she had a good date, but it looks like the Farah by-election may be on possibly that day. That's one of the likely days. So we're going to delay it until late May. We're going to put it together and expand it and do a really good job. It'll be on the central, Carrara, central Gold Coast, and by the way, Marie Strong will be a feature of it. You can learn all about that psychopathic grub, that psychopathic crook that is driving this for his own gain. Oh, that reminds me, Tamworth. Barnaby Joyce is a hero of mine for democracy. He is a passionate believer in democracy. He was so wasted in the National Party. But I went to Tamworth to be a guest at his branch meeting in New England branch for One Nation. And we had some fun there. We went to the Pistol Club. I'm so impressed. Every time I go to a pistol club, because I'm not a shooter, every time I go to a pistol club, I am impressed with the responsible shooters that they have there. And I met a guy called John Lott, Professor John Lott from America. He came down here a couple of weeks ago and met with him. He's got a hell of a lot of experience. And do you know, this is fact, absolute fact. He's very good at getting economic data, data on social trends as well. But John said that the data shows clearly and comprehensively that the crime rate in America is lower than the crime rate in Australia. Lower. The highlight of the weekend for me was having a ride in drift cars. I don't know if you're familiar with drifting and racing drift cars, but it's the first time I'd been in one, and the skill, and thank you so much, Chris, from Ipswich, who was the driver in my car, or I was a passenger in his car. The skill levels are just phenomenal. It's just amazing, and they do very little damage to each other, but it's so respectful, and it's an eye-opening sport, I tell you, but I had a ball being a passenger. Okay, let's just talk briefly about the preferential voting system, because people are asking questions already for Farah, South Australia, Victoria election coming up at the end of the year. First past the post is where whoever has the highest number of votes wins. That's it. There are no preferences distributed. It's just you tick one box, one candidate amongst 6 or 7, whatever it is, and whoever has the highest number wins. That's simple. But it doesn't account for your preferences, which is really the very, very strong advantage of having preferential voting. Now, compulsory preferential voting means that you have to put a number next to every box. You put a number 1 next to your favorite, your most wanted candidate. Number 2 next to your second most wanted. Number 3 next to your third most wanted. And then you can start from the bottom if you like. Put 6 next to the one you want least, the one you want most to be left out. Then number 5 next to the second worst, number 4 next to the third worst. So that means you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that means that your vote will go to one of those candidates, 1 to 5. So what the Labor Party and the Liberal Party are doing to scare people from voting for us is to say that voting One Nation, your vote will be wasted. No, when you vote One Nation 1 and the micro parties 2, 3, and then Liberal Party 4 say, if One Nation doesn't get to be part of the two-party preferred, then your vote will end up with the Liberals. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4 Labor before the Liberals, then your vote will be with the Labor Party. So what it means is a preferential voting system means that you can have two bites of the cherry. You can give your vote to the best party you honestly believe is the best, and hopefully you'll see that's One Nation. And then just in case it doesn't get up, it will go to the other party that you want up in preference to the last party. So preferential voting is far more effective. A lot of people seem to get scared because they think that they can't understand it. It's really simple. Preferential voting enables you to get your preferred party up, and gives you an opportunity to vote for a minor party. Now, people then say we've got to get rid of the two-party system. Two-party preferred does not refer to Labor and Liberal. When you allocate all the preferences, whoever ends up 1 and whoever ends up 2, they're the two-party preferred. In the Hunter Valley, in the Hunter electorate in New South Wales in the last federal election, the two-party preferred was Labor and One Nation. Whoever gets to be 1 or 2, they're the two-party preferred. With a preferential voting system, then you can get minor parties like One Nation to be actually come first or come second, and that's exactly what we want, come first. So preferential voting system, we'll put more effort into explaining this, but preferential voting system is absolutely essential to get away from the political facade, change the status quo, get away from Liberal Labor Uni-Party. Now, there's a second way of voting to preferential voting, and that's optional preferential voting, where you put 1, and that'll do. Or you put 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can number all the squares if you want, and that's what we recommend. Or you can number just 1, or you can number just 2 or 3. So that way, if you don't want your vote going to the Labor Party at all, then you just leave them right off the ticket. But it used to be optional preferential voting of a sort under John Howard. When Pauline took off in the polls in 1998, he scuttled it and made it compulsory preferential voting. And Albert Langer, I think his name was Albert Langer, was jailed because he opposed it. So preferential voting is extremely important. All you have to remember is just put number 1 next to the candidate or the party you most prefer, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down to the last one for the lesser preferences. I told you there's a storm coming. There's a storm coming as the guilty try to bring us down so they can continue hiding betrayal of Australia and protect the Uni Party. You'll notice they're telling a lot of lies about us. They're telling a lot of smears about us. So we welcome questions and criticism. That's our job, to be held accountable, and voters' job to hold us accountable. My first Senate speech, and I said this for the first 4 years, I always started a speech with the words, as a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, because that's my job, to serve the people of Queensland and Australia. When I first stated that, and a few times afterwards, the Labor Party, the Liberal Party, the Greens sniggered. So that's their choice. But that's my choice, is to show that I'm a servant to you to the people of Queensland and Australia. The more lies we see, the more it reinforces just how afraid the Labor Party and Liberal Party are. And the media is, because the media work for the Labor Party and Liberal Party. They get so much advertising when those parties are in government. That's why we need to change the government. Another reason for changing the government, to get more One Nation in the government, so that we can stop the rampant advertising that's just stealing your money and giving it to the media barons. Now, One Nation at the moment is mentioned everywhere, and the lies about us are mentioned everywhere. But lies are a form of control, and always beneath control there is fear. People don't try to control unless they're afraid. Now, there'll be much more to come. We can see it building up in the media. The Australian has become negative towards us in so many subtle ways. And they're subtle, they pretend to be helping, but they're not. They're subtly saying we can't do it, but we can do it. I'll put this to you. What would you rather have? Liberal Party and Labor Party, Uni Party, deliberately betraying this country, and most of them going along, most of them members of Parliament go along like sheep with their party power brokers? Or would you rather have a fresh bunch of newcomers into Parliament who will actually support you and serve you? I know what I'm going to be having. I'm going to be having the people who will serve. We'll make mistakes, but no worse than the Labor Party and Liberal Party. We won't make deliberate betrayal, unlike the Labor Party and the Liberal Party. For 7 decades they have screwed this country, betrayed us. We've got to stop it. And as we keep getting more policies out, then we will get more of the Uni Party establishment fighting back. They have and by the way, with the Uni Party, we now can see their heads in the news. They have been pointed out, fingered as the Uni Party by the people of Australia. And the more they squawk and squeal, the more people realise they are part of the Uni Party. Okay, I want to now express my regrets for something I said in part, and I want to explain. During Senate estimates, I asked a question. The question was actually worded by one of Australia's top female psychologists. And I thought there's one word in her questions that might irritate people. But I realised it was the truth, so I didn't water it down, and I'll explain that even further as we go now. For calls and emails responding to my Senate estimates questions on male suicide, and on female suicide and female self-harm. Now, female self-harm or suicide attempts are actually a cry for help. Many consider them a cry for help. A gesture, attention-seeking. They're trying to get attention to their problems. I get that. It's self-harm, suicide. And males have suicide. Now, there are patterns that are in male suicide and female suicide, and this is written by this leading Australian psychologist. She's very, very good. She's very, very concerned about the very high rates of male suicide and no attention. The attention goes to female suicides, as rightly it should go to female suicides. But there's no attention paid, or very little attention paid, to male suicide. Male suicide rates are 3 times to 4 times higher than female. Fact. And no one even raises an eyebrow. Suicide, regardless of gender, is a very serious situation. It's very difficult and a very sensitive topic. I acknowledge that. Given some people's circumstances, I appreciate the message. We didn't get a lot, probably only half a dozen or so messages, and I admire the tone of those people's reply. They said they did not like the word I used, attention-seeking, for female self-harm, attention-seeking, but gave me an opportunity to respond. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to respond. You may or may not agree with my response, but at least I told you honestly. And there's a very significant factor behind using the word that I chose to use. One of Australia's leading female clinical psychologists, as I said, with decades of extensive experience in mental health, including suicide, male and female, wrote those questions for me. Yet I was the one who asked the questions, so I take full responsibility for the words used, and I realised that one of the words may have been sensitive and may have provoked a reaction, but I looked further down in the questions and I used it deliberately because it is the truth. Apparently there are patterns in male suicide that are different from female patterns. Men are more likely to succeed in committing suicide. Women are less likely to succeed. 3 to 4 times more males successfully commit suicide than do females. 3 to 4 times, and nothing is said about it. Very little is said. And the female psychologist is appalled at the male suicide crisis being ignored. She says it's a real tragedy. It's tragic. Female suicides are also tragic. There's no difference between them in the level of tragedy. And so are the many female attempts at self-harm that the female psychologist advises are often attempts to get attention. That is a fact. I understand that many mental health professionals and publications agree with her assessment. There are scales for assessing suicide intent, and it places many more females than males in the categories associated with gesturing, not actually doing, but gesturing. Perhaps a more empathetic term with individuals is a cry for help, and I could have used that term, but here's why I didn't. The psychologist says this language, though, using a cry for help instead of attention-seeking, it is attention-seeking, doesn't trivialize it, it's attention-seeking in a very, very serious and sad way, and a damaging way. But the psychologist said this language of seeking a cry for help, it can be dishonest, and thus avoid the real diagnosis. Because what happened was, when they changed the language in 2014 and started using a cry for help rather than attention-seeking, which is what it really was classified as, then the suicide rates actually went up, because they were just dismissed as a cry for help. The psychologist's point is that society needs to recognize the high rate of men's suicide and not lump it in among female suicides, and recognize the high rate of female self-harm that can be a cry for help, a gesture, attention-seeking. It all is valid and it all needs to be assessed. To address the tragedy of suicide and self-harm deserves and needs an accurate understanding of the situation, the data, and the specific causes and circumstances. So I have the graph here with me. You can't see that. I wish I'd put it in as a picture, but basically it shows that men's suicides occur at 3 to 4 times the number of female suicides, and self-harm being changed from attention-seeking to gesturing to a cry for help increased the suicide rate, because people weren't dealing with the correct term. To restore our country's democracy, we need more people taking an active role in politics. So those who disagree with the term I used, I can understand. I almost changed it, but I decided to stay with the actual term, the truth, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We can't afford to sugarcoat these things. And I want to thank you so much for holding me accountable, which is exactly what you should do in an active democracy. So thank you. I learned a bit. Perhaps next time I will explain and use both terms. Right, the Senate's Select Committee on Information Integrity on Climate Change and Energy. There's an inquiry going on. What a disgraceful inquiry. Its chairman is Green Senator Peter Wish-Wilson, and its deputy chair is Senator Michelle Ananda Raja. What a disgrace. We held 2 days of public hearings in Canberra this week. The global agenda, it's pushing the global agenda to get in place censorship laws so that they can stop any opposition to their climate fraud. What's happening is around the world, and national leaders have said this, even national leaders pushing net zero have said that climate catastrophism is falling apart, it's decreasing. Bill Gates said that the climate alarm was exaggerated in the past. He's admitting it. Maybe it's got something to do with the Epstein files now, but he needs to get in people's good books. But the point I'm getting to is that people can see it failing, and the UN is desperate to shut up people like me, censor us, shut us down. So it's a global agenda that the UN started to censor people from talking about climate, and it's a push that they've been joined in by the World Economic Forum Alliance. The alliance was formed in 2018. They often work together. The Greens and the Labor Party are pushing this inquiry. They have been biased in their selection of papers, biased in their selection of witnesses, biased in the selection of their hearings, biased in the way they've conducted the hearings. There are several sessions, for example, in the hearings. Say an hour was given to a witness. Senator Wish-Wilson, the chair, the Green Party chair, Senator Ananda Raja, the Labor Party deputy chair, took 45 minutes. In one occasion, they took 50 minutes of those 60 minutes. Then they finally gave a go to the Nationals and then gave me a go. I mean, and then they complain about being over time and behind time. I mean, this is how stupid it is, but we've got some more surprises coming for them. I want to thank the many people who stood up and stood firm to the abuse they copped from the Greens and the Labor Party. Okay, a message to Persians. And by the way, it's important to understand that Persia is a region, a very, very proud region in the Middle East. It largely overlaps, not entirely overlaps with modern-day Iran, but there's some terrible things happening in Iran. I'd like to speak to all the refugees who came to Australia seeking shelter from oppressive, radical Islamic regimes and communist dictatorships. It is a fact that the biggest killer of Muslims in the world today is radical Islam. Radical Islam kills more Muslims than anyone else. And it kills more Muslims than it kills anyone else. So they're the victims. You actually understand the risk Australia faces better than anyone because you have seen what tolerating destructive ideology leads to. When you tolerate radical Islam, it tears apart your country. We can see Britain is becoming a shithole. I mean, that's the only description. I know many of you are looking for a political home. One Nation has made a pledge to keep Australia safe, to keep Australia free, to keep Australia democratic, to keep Australia a Western nation that values merit, not identity. We don't care about your background so long as you fit into Australia and you work and contribute to Australia and we make decisions based on merit. We believe that you should keep what you earn, that you should have the opportunity to rise in wealth and education, just like anyone else, regardless of skin colour, regardless of religion, regardless of ethnicity. We believe that you and your children should be able to attain a career based on the work you put in, not your gender, race, religion or pronouns. That this is a nation of homes, not handouts. And I'll say that again. Australia used to be a nation of homes, not handouts. And that's what we want to get it back to, a nation of homes, not handouts. We believe that you should feel safe walking down the road or playing on the beach. And we believe that criminals and terrorists are the ones who should live in fear, not you. We are tired of having this country being turned upside down to protect the criminals, to protect the perpetrators of violence, to protect the perpetrators of unfairness. If this is the dream that you came for, and I know it is for most Persians, if you came to Australia for security and opportunity, and if you don't want to see this country turn into the nation that you fled, then join One Nation and give us your #1 vote. Don't waste your vote on parties that have spent 50 years breaking promises and betraying Australia. We serve you and we serve Australia. Australia is precious. It's one of the last remaining nations that oppressive and intolerant regimes do not dominate. We do not have an oppressive and intolerant regime in this country. Not a violent one anyway. It is intolerant, but it's not violent. It will take every person and every vote to stand up to weak politicians and say, no, we will not let you destroy Australia because you're worried about losing your seat. The Labor Party is appeasing radical Islam because it is afraid of losing the Muslim vote. Most Muslims in Australia are sensible. They come to us and they tell us they do not like radical Islam. They do not like radical Islam. They want something done about it. Remember, the biggest victims of radical Islam? Muslims. Australia is more important than Tony Burke's political future or Albanese's reputation at the UN. Without One Nation, there will be no nation. Without One Nation, there will be no nation. Now for a bit of levity. Are you putting that photo up there, Ryan? Yep, got it. Thank you. So what antics is Senator Alex Antic up to? By the way, I like Alec. I love him. He's just a really good guy. He's got great values. He's got a sense of humour. He is passionate about our country. But, you know, it looks like he's having a bit of fun here. Our lead upper house candidate for South Australia is Corey Bernardi, a former Liberal Party member in South Australia. So he would know Alex Antic pretty well, Senator Alex Antic from the Liberal Party. They were caught having a beer together. What? Caught having a beer together. And Senator Alex Antic from the Liberal Party and former Senator Corey Bernardi, now the leader of One Nation in South Australia. The media went into a meltdown naturally. And I love Alex's response. Listen to this. This is a statement from Senator Alex Antic regarding events of 23 February 2026. Quote, on the evening of Monday, 23rd February 2026, I met with my friend Corey Bernardi on Rundle Street, Adelaide, for the purposes of having a beer. On that occasion, we were photographed while discussing a range of matters, including but not limited to a movie I had watched the night before. These guys are actually friends. At approximately 4 p.m., don't you love the tone? It sounds like a criminal statement. At approximately 4 p.m., I offered to buy a round, and predictably Corey offered little resistance and allowed me to buy. So he's having a bit of a jab at Corey. I returned with 2 low-carb beers. Shame, says Alex. This behaviour was totally out of character for me, mainly because I would normally play a game of chicken and try to get the other person to pay. He's got a great sense of humour, Alex. I had no idea how much distress the consumption of low-carb beers would create on social media, he says. It was never my intention to offend anyone by ordering low-carb beers, but rather suspected that a man as fit and as athletic as Corey would demand the same. I'm disappointed in myself, says Alex, and I know I have let a lot of people down, having low-carb beers. I'm fully committed to bettering myself, and I would be grateful if the press could respect my privacy at this difficult time. How clever is that? Takes the piss out of the media. Here's a cartoon for about Pauline. You can see it on the screen there. Is that Angus Taylor and Albanese saying to Pauline, we condemn you for ineptly trying to ask a question that we cannot possibly answer without being evasive. And Pauline just says, please explain. This cartoon is in response to the media frenzy surrounding Pauline Hanson and One Nation. They spent the entire week attacking us, only for us to rise in the polls again. People are seeing through the facade. They're seeing the uniparty noose around the neck of both Liberal and Labor. And the more they squirm, the more the people can see the noose tightening. That's inevitable, because people are awake to the fact that you are a uniparty. You're bastards coming as a pair. Even in Victoria. So hello, Victoria. If you're watching, welcome to the home of reason, sanity and hope, One Nation. Don't forget to vote for us in the by-election in Nepean coming up. As the cartoon points out, the reason for the media hysteria is because Pauline is asking questions that the Uniparty doesn't have any answers for. These are critical topics for the future of our whole nation, not just Victoria, not just South Australia, not just Nepean, not just Farah, the whole country. It feels like the Labor Party is more worried about people asking questions than they are about cracking down on Islamic terrorism. That's definitely the case. How many more speech laws are they going to bring in to stop Australians asking questions? Valid questions that look after people's safety. Oh, and look at this. Here's Josh Frydenberg, former Treasurer, senior Liberal Party member. What's he saying there? I do believe we need to move to an immigration policy which does discriminate. They're criticising us for saying that. We have been wanting discrimination in our immigration policy. We're wanting people to be profiled. We're wanting people to be profiled on their religion. If they have any trace of radical Islam, keep them out. Don't let them in more easily. Keep them out. Same with other ideologists. Here we have yet another example of the Liberal Party copying One Nation policy. Tony Abbott and Josh Frydenberg have come out and said what we've been saying for years, that Australia needs a migration policy that discriminates against those who pose a risk to Australia. I'll say that again, that Australia needs a migration policy that discriminates against those who pose a risk to Australia. And it reminds me of something that Senator Alex Antic said, I think on the day that Angus Taylor was elected leader of the Liberal Party. He said, Angus, please adopt many One Nation policies. Josh Frydenberg said something along the lines of treating our immigration program as a matter of self-defence. Hallelujah! No kidding, mate. That's what we've been saying. It is the number one thing to keep people out of the country. As I keep saying, the immigration policy is not about serving the people who you bring into the country, serving refugees, serving economic migrants. It is about looking after the people in this country. The immigration policy should serve the people in this country. I'm an immigrant. My father was hardworking. My mother was hardworking. And they deserve to be in Australia. But if people are coming here for the welfare, coming here to disrupt, not accept, to separate and alienate, keep them out. We don't need them. So Josh Frydenberg continues. I do believe, this is a quote, I do believe we need to move to an immigration policy which does discriminate. How bloody long has one nation been saying this? How long has the Liberal Party attacked us for this common sense, human and humane position? Don't vote for the followers, vote for the leaders. We are the leaders. One nation are the leaders. And that brings me to the Royal Commission on Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion, which started this week. We believe it should have been called the Bondi Royal Commission into Islamic Terrorism. That is what the core purpose is. Everything else is being done in reverse order. For example, the government rushed through 2 sets of laws which have failed to combat radical Islamic groups or hate preachers, given them exemptions. These laws and the Royal Commission took place ahead of the trial of the surviving accused Bondi terrorist and without an extensive review into the assumed failures of ASIO and the Australian Federal Police. Before you make a response in terms of legislation, you do the reviews, you do your Royal Commission first, and then you act upon the recommendations of the Royal Commission. What they're doing here, the Labor Party under Albanese, is they are punishing innocent Australians with laws that hurt innocent Australians, restrict innocent Australians. That is not going to hurt terrorists. That is not going to suppress terrorism. It's just about controlling and suppressing us, the people of Australia. So where are the reviews? Where's the Royal Commission? Australians want to know how many individuals on the ASIO watch list hold radical Islamic beliefs. ASIO is evasive about this detail, even though it's in the national interest. I asked questions and they wouldn't tell me specific answers. I asked them some questions and sent desperate. How many on this watch list represent a failure of our migration program to properly vet and check applicants and check their children? We know from Europe that the first generation of children born to migrants who fled theocratic regimes like radical Islamic states are often the most vulnerable to radicalisation. They're the most likely to become radicalised. We do not want to allow this situation to develop in Australia. And we want to know how many of these individuals have access to firearms. Don't we? Of course we do. How many work in proximity to security services or with the Australian public? What jobs do these people, do those with concerning behaviours favour? Where do they most end up? How can Australians understand the risk if there's no transparency from the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister was dragged kicking and screaming, denying that he would hold a Royal Commission, denying a Royal Commission repeatedly. And then when he called the Royal Commission, he said this would be the quickest responding call to a Royal Commission. The guy refused to mention radical Islam, refused to mention the words radical Islam, and just covered it all up because he's afraid of votes. He's afraid of votes from Muslims going somewhere else. Instead of an investigation into social cohesion, which will include the entirely unrelated topics of Aboriginal Australians and gender activism, what the hell is going on in this country? We have a massacre, a tragedy in our biggest city, Sydney, and we've got that extended into unrelated topics of Australian Aboriginals and gender activism. We might ask, where's the focus on radicalisation and global Islamic terror? Where's the focus on that? There's none. This is a betrayal of the people of Australia. He wouldn't call a Royal Commission. He wouldn't mention radical Islam. Now he's covering it up. This is particularly critical given Iran, a heart of terror funding. It's facing a potential regime change with pressure on the US president to assist protesters in overthrowing the Ayatollah in Iran, theocratic regime. The repercussions from this will have immediate security impacts on Australia. My question to the Prime Minister, Mr. Albanese, why have you diluted this Royal Commission with regressive politics instead of using the opportunity to perform a necessary and major investigation and crackdown on Islamic extremism that has been left festering in our capital cities for over a decade? Why are you exposing the people of Australia to risk, needless risk? Why don't you just focus? Why don't you tell the truth? Why don't you have the ticker to do the job you need to do as Prime Minister, as supposed leader of this country? You can't be a leader of this country unless you look honestly at the real issues. The Uni Party, again I say it, wants to look good, not do good. Another coal mine shut, more jobs lost. In other news, as I said, there's been another Queensland coal mine caught up in financial difficulty. That's because the royalties are too high. Now, we believe that royalties in general for our exported mineral resources, mining, petroleum, gas, are far, far too low. But what happened with the Palaszczuk government, she jacked up the coal royalties when coal went through a huge increase in selling price, and that's fair enough. That's fair enough. But when the price comes down, the royalties should come down too, because otherwise we'll have no royalties because there won't be any coal getting mined. We'll have no jobs and no industry. So coal is fundamental. So let's be sensible about coal royalties. MRH-90 Taipan helicopter. On the 4th of February this year, I was successful in getting a Senate inquiry into the MRH-90 Taipan helicopter crash. At last, despite promises that were broken about getting data, getting the information, we haven't got anything at all. We're finally getting a formal inquiry and report into that tragic July 2023 incident in the Whitsundays in which 4 Australian Defence Force airmen were killed. And I want to say thank you to the parents of the 4 killed men who have been encouraging me to continue on this. We will. We won't stop this. We will continue until we get to the truth. The defence top brass is in the way, and they're fighting a rearguard action to stop us getting to the truth. That's what I firmly believe. The terms of reference are as follows. I'll read them out to you. The fatal July 2023 MRH-90 Taipan helicopter incident in the Whitsundays with specific reference to 1. Airworthiness assessments of the MRH-90 platform and associated equipment. 2. Army aviation compliance with the Defence Aviation Safety Regulations. 3. Findings of the Comcare investigation into the incident. 4. Any other investigations into the incident. 5. The appropriateness of the decision not to prosecute any matters arising from the incident. We're shocked. And 6. Any other related matters. So, if you've got anything to say about this, please put your submission in. The committee is the Legal and Constitutional Affairs References Committee. The date referred is 4th of February 2026. And I want to thank my Senate colleagues because they voted, of course, in the majority to support the inquiry, to support my motion for an inquiry. Submissions close the 1st of May 2026, so we've got all of March and all of April, 2 months to get the submissions in. We hope as many vets, veterans, and service people get in with excuse me, in with the submission. Catching a summer cold. Now the address will be up on the screen. You can also get it in the website for the committee, or just Google Taipan helicopter inquiry. Can you scroll that screen back down again? Thank you. Committee Secretary, Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee, Post Office Box 6100 6100, Parliament House, Canberra, ACT 2600. They've got a phone number there, which is 02 6277 3560, and they've got an email there as well. So submissions, I'll put a link in the comments. So please, if you want to make a submission or consider making a submission, please do so and have a look at the comments. I want to thank everyone in the Australian Defence Force and the veterans who have served in the Australian Defence Force. I want to thank the relatives for really supporting my work on the Taipan. Thank you so much. It's the right thing to do. So you want the truth, and it's absolutely essential. The top brass are the people, top brass in the Australian Defence Force are the people in the way of getting an honest inquiry, getting an honest exposing of the cause of the accident and how to prevent future repetitions of it. Okay, we'll come back to immigration now. I want to be clear about net negative migration. Net negative migration. That's the policy we're pushing. Every year, about, roughly, it varies from year to year, 220,000 people leave. We want to let in only enough skilled people to make the total population a 90,000 decrease. 90,000 decrease. While allowing skills like tradies, construction, nuclear experts for South Australia. So how do you do that? If we lose 220,000 every year, on average, then we would allow in 130 tradies, construction, skilled people who've got skills and qualifications that they can put straight to use to increase Australia's productive capacity. Nuclear experts, for example, and that would mean our population overall would go down by 90 each year until we get our housing caught up, until we get our infrastructure caught up, until we get our services caught up, our hospitals, schools, etc. That is a sensible policy. 5 words, I'll repeat 5 words that I talk about with immigration. Mass migration is about the first word, numbers. We've got far too many coming in. We want to have less coming in than leave, which means that we'll have a decrease every year for 5 years, which means we need who can immediately go to work and increase our productive capacity. The third word that I remember all the time is culture. It's the most significant driver of behaviour, significant driver of productivity, of security, of risk, of safety. The fourth word is integration or assimilation. We don't want multicultural Australia. We want a culture that is Australian culture. So we want people to integrate. We only want people who come here who want to settle in and become Australians, comply with our laws, comply with our culture, comply with our values. And the fifth word is the most important, arguably, the identity. Australia is an Anglo-Celtic country. Doesn't mean anything to do with skin colour, but it means to do with the background of our culture, which comes from Britain, which comes from Anglo-Celts, which is the source of Western civilization. We have people here with all kinds of skin colours. Fernando Rukshan with far, far darker skin than most people in the country, who's saying he wants exactly that. He wants the Anglo-Celtic culture, preserved Western civilization, because that's why people came here. They don't think about skin colour when they come. They think about our identity as Australians. As I've said in the past, when we go overseas, we introduce ourselves as, I'm Malcolm Roberts, family name Roberts, and I'm Australian. My identity is Australian. Now, Premier Malinauskas, South Australian Premier, listen to what he said to One Nation Voters. Sorry, play the video, please, Ryan.
To one is who's going to feed you and bathe you and wipe your bum when you're 90, right? Because it ain't going to be your kids. Because if I get my way, they're going to be working on submarines. With high-paying jobs, so they can afford to own their home. That has to be built by someone. And who's going to do that work?
How about that? I hope you could hear the sound. I couldn't hear it, so I'm hoping you heard it. We need migrants to wipe our bums. Really? Really? How racist is that? How elitist is that? How derogatory is it to immigrants? A simple and honest question. Does that mean instead of negotiating submarine contracts, immigrants are only meant for jobs like wiping 90-year-old bums? The mask is slipping off the full elitism on display from South Australian Premier Malinauskas. That's the heart of the Labor Party right there. Hypocrites. Call us names and then do what, even though we don't, and then actually be the one calling names. More good news. Celine Baumgarten and the E-Safety Commissar. A huge win for free speech. Celine, a single mum from Western Sydney, just beat the E-Safety Commissar after a gruelling 2-year legal battle. The Commissar, Julian Grant, tried to appeal a previous win Celine had, and the court just shut this down. Celine is calling it a massive victory, not just for herself, but for parental rights in general and the entire country. This all started over a 53-second video she posted being critical of a queer club at a primary school. A queer club at a primary school. Her kids go there. Why shouldn't she be involved? Why shouldn't she be critical? Why shouldn't she look after the safety of her children? This is exactly what we need. Parents who stand up. A lot of principals and teachers just follow like sheep. We need parents to stand up. The government tried to scrub it from the internet using the $250,000 taxpayers dollars in the appeal. To repeat, the e-safety commissar went after a single mother with $250,000 of your money, our money, because the mother spoke out protecting her children. Doing what mother hen should do, protecting her child. The bigger picture here is the major reality check for how e-safety and freedom play out online. The Free Speech Union is calling this a major victory, quote, because it exposes a tactic where the regulator was using informal notices to bypass the law, so she wants to enforce the law on innocent people by bypassing the law herself and force platforms to censor people without any real accountability. It's a wake-up call that online safety can't just be a blank check for government overreach or ideological policing. This ruling basically forces the e-safety commissar to go back to the drawing board and actually follow the law herself, proving that a single mum can hold a powerful agency accountable when the bedrock of free speech is on the line. Well done, Celine. Here's another abuse of taxpayer money, this time through an omission. The ABC hid details in a quiet story for 2 years. They published the story, I want to make that clear, they published the story, but they didn't give the details. They reported on the hunting of young people, suppressing key points. Here's a quote from the ABC article. The footage is among recordings played in Sydney courts for circulated in chat groups and obtained by ABC investigations from court files, victims and members of the public. It documents a surge of violence against gay and bisexual young people in Sydney at the hands of a resurgent Islamic ISIS terrorist network in the 2 years before the Bondi attack. A 2-year ABC investigation into the reawakening of IS can reveal the attackers in the videos were linked to the same terrorist network as Naveed and Sajid Akram, the father and son responsible for the Hanukkah massacre that killed tragically 15 people at Bondi Beach in December 2025. The bashings of these young gay people, the bashings raise fresh questions about whether Australia underestimated the threat in the lead up to the Bondi attack and whether LGBTQIA plus Australians remain acutely exposed. 5 teenagers have so far been convicted over the bashings. Several of them congregated around a radical Bankstown prayer hall, Al Madina Dawa Centre, which was ordered to close after the Bondi shooting. So the same prayer centre is bashing innocent gay people and killing or ordering or being associated with, connected with 2 killers who killed 15 people. And I understand Bishop Mari Emanuel attack. Hang on, Ryan. Police evidence connected members of the group to 2 of Australia's most influential pro-IS figures, spiritual leader Wissam Haddad and alleged youth recruiter Wasim Fayyad. It's all a network. And Bishop Mari Emanuel attack, attempted murder. Those children, I don't know, it's hard to say what's really important here. These children are children. Their sexuality, is something that their access to being on Grindr is a really serious question that needs to be asked. But the bigger question is, what's the ABC doing about this? Why did they suppress that it was Muslims doing this attacking? Why did they suppress that? Could that have prevented the Bondi attack? These children are scarred for life. We've got Muslims in gangs attacking Australians attacking gay people. We've got them connected with the Bondi shooters. It's got to have truth. Only by speaking the truth can things be exposed. That's the only way. It is so important. It's a matter of life and death to speak the truth. And now we've got... Can you put that up on the screen, please, and let people just have a read of it?
It's a video. A video flash.
Okay. You playing it?
Sorry.
Sorry, you're going to play it?
Yep, I thought you meant.
Great.
Going.
Well, if you look
pri-
at the wholesale,
the
wholesale
pressure on
price
pricing.
in the last year,
Okay,
and
so
that's
on that
because
case
of the
then, Minister,
amount of
why are
renewables
people
that are
paying
in the system.
20% more this year?
Well,
If the wholesale price is halved, why are people paying 20% more on their energy bills?
To the New South Wales.
No answer.
No answer.
I'm actually reading a note. Look, if you look again, I love
Well,
the,
no,
I love
then
the
I'll
proportionate
let you
aspect.
answer, Minister. If the wholesale price has fallen 50% in the last 12 months, why are people paying 20% more this year than they were last year?
Because the way in which we are rebuilding the system means that there are network costs and that are added to the system. There's no.
That is the answer that
We
I
weren't
wanted.
told this at the beginning.
That is the answer that I wanted.
Look, can we just?
That's Wes Fang, MLC, Member Legislative Council, New South Wales State Parliament, questioning the New South Wales Energy Minister, Penny Sharp, finally admitting what we've been saying all along, what I've been saying all along. The wholesale price is halved for electricity is halved, but people are paying 20% more on their electricity bills. Why? Network costs of renewable transmission, solar and wind transmission, far-flung, far longer transmission, far more connections between the transmissions, between the solar complexes, solar industrial estates and wind turbines. And that's putting up the price of electricity. That's just one of the many things that are not counted by the CSIRO. A message to the CSIRO. We know you're committing fraud on gen cost. Your advice to report to the federal government. That is skewing, lying fraudulently about the costs of solar and wind, which are far higher than you represent when you add all the transmission costs and all the network costs. Far higher than coal. But you can't hide the figures eventually because they come out. Now you might be all retired by that time in the CSIRO, and Chris Bowen might be retired for the lies being peddled. But the facts will come out, and you are hurting the people of Queensland and Australia. The network costs of solar and wind transmission are adding enormously to the cost, and you have left them out, and you've done so deliberately. You know, Eraring is the largest power station in the country. And the previous government, a Liberal government in New South Wales, wanted to shut it down. It was all arranged to be shut down. On the night of the election in 2023 of the Labor government in New South Wales, the incoming Energy Minister, I watched her say, we've got to do something about Eraring. They know that it won't work without coal. They know. And so the dishonesty amongst both the parties, and this whole tone of dishonesty and fraud and looking after oneself was set by Marie Strong, the person who fabricated global warming. Okay, have a look at this map. Can you put that up there while I read the notes? Great. Data leak. AI-based identity verification service ID Merit is accidentally leaked the personal data of 1 million people from 26 countries. Data includes full names, addresses, postal codes, date of birth, phone numbers, gender, small email addresses, and more. One Nation has totally opposed the government digital ID. You notice I said government digital ID. One of the reasons we totally opposed the government digital ID was that the reasons that I forecast, and it's happening. Excuse me. Do you trust the government to keep your data safe? I don't. As I've said before, publicly and in the Senate, I'm not opposed to being offered from private companies a digital ID. I've got a choice. I can select one of many digital IDs, or I can keep my paper ID and photocopy and send them out if I need to be identified, need my identity verified. But if I've got a choice amongst private vendors who are providing a digital ID for me, then I have competition. And the best provider who will keep my data secure and won't have any leaks, that's the one I'll choose. With the government, there's no such guarantee. There's no such competition. There's no accountability, because to get accountability, you have to have choice. You have to have choice. And that shouldn't be up to the government to tell me how I must do my digital ID, because they'll eventually make it conditional. But I've got to have choice, and then I take responsibility if I want to use digital ID, and if I do, who I use to do it. Not forced to use the government's digital ID, and then it starts blackmailing me saying if you want services from the government or you want information, you must use a digital ID. That's where we're headed. It's already the case in Queensland. Okay, quick update on the branches. We've had huge roll-ups, sometimes over 200 people at branch meetings around the country. Regularly 150, 200 people coming along to branch meetings for One Nation branches. So we've also got all 151 electorates in the country with branches. And just the excitement around Farrer, the Farrer by-election, Susan Lee's old seat, we've got 81 candidates when the nominations were closed. Just had to close them because they're just getting overwhelming. 81 candidates. It's important to have a lot of candidates, important to have a lot of citizens, a lot of voters making choices. But Albanese wants to increase the number of politicians. Yes, you heard that correctly. I was called into the Minister of State's office, Don Farrell, not a bad bloke. He's from South Australia. And he told me what would be One Nation's attitude towards an increase in politicians. I said, not on. Pauline says, not on. We don't need any more politicians in this country. And what their argument they're making is to try and get control of the Senate. Get away from having to control it jointly with the Greens. That's what they want. They want more inner city seats. That's what they want. They want to stay in power for a long time. We can't afford their waste, can't afford their lies. And think about that. They want to cut the size of the electorates slightly, by getting more electorates in the inner cities. Cut the size of the electorates, the number of voters in the electorates, so that they can give us better service. What a lot of bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Because the reality is, this is all about a political win and political certainty. Because the reality is that Anthony Albanese cut our staff in half at One Nation, cut Ralph Babette's staff in half, left the Green staff, left the other crossbench staff, the Pococks, the Lydia Thorpes, the Tammy Tyrrells, the Jackie Lambies. Jackie Lambie has 50% more staff than we had, and she's kept all of them. And we've had ours cut. So we've got 1/3 the personal advisors, the parliamentary advisors that Jackie Lambie has. Why? Well, think about it. We stand up to Albanese, the others roll over to Albanese. So if he was serious about service from MPs to their people, why would he cut our staff so we can do less service? Anyway, I want to make it very clear. Pauline and I are totally opposed to any increase in politicians. What I want is a decrease in central government, a decrease in bureaucrats, a decrease in MPs, a decrease in how much this power the central government has. We need to get back to comply with our constitution, to put in place competitive federalism, because that'll bring real accountability back to the states. And that's the most efficient part to have the services coming from. Except for defence, foreign affairs, trade, and a couple of others, it should be mostly done at the states. Then you have competition, then you have, wherever you have competition, you have choice. Wherever you have choice, you have accountability. So we've got away from that because at the moment the state governments blame the federal government and the federal government blame the states government. and the feds collect the money, so they make the decisions. So everything's being run from Canberra, basically. It's wrong. We need to decrease the federal government, cut the federal government bureaucracy, and put the power back to the states. In the future, we're going to talk about counter-jihad work. Oh, and I just want to make this final comment. The Epstein files have indicated what we've been saying about something else. The stench of the Western globalist corporate leaders. They're all in on it. National, political, business, media, espionage. The government agencies, the private corporations, they're all in on it. We have been saying that for years. Now you can see what these grubs are like. It's right out there in the open. Everything from Prince Andrew, the British royal family, right through to corporate leaders. The British government has now got a senior figure carted off to jail. So more will come, but that shows you the stench of the Western so-called leaders. National, political, business, media. Have we got any questions? Excuse my cold. Senator Malcolm Roberts, this is from Lexi Pring. When Watt starts rambling on, instead of answering your questions, ask the chair to stop the clock. He's just deliberately wasting yours and our time. Well, we've usually got a Labor Party chair, Lexi. Thank you for your question. But it's part of the cut and thrust. If I challenge him, sometimes I do, to point out that he's flat out lied. And I'll tell you a story in a minute. But other times I let it go. Sometimes I point to the video camera at the corner of the office and just say, "You can lie to me. You can derail me. You can deflect from me, but you can't stop the people from Australia seeing what you're doing right now." Murray Watt. There are two parts to this story I'm about to tell you. Murray Watt took 2 separate videos of me. There were 2 separate videos taken in St. Estes of me asking Murray Watt questions. His staff took a quote from one video out of context, spliced it with another part out of the other video out of context, and made it look as one video. Completely fabricated the whole thing, completely changed the whole thing. Now you would think that would not be allowed. I put in a complaint to the President of the Senate. She came back and said it's okay. That's your parliament. That's why we need to get rid of this uni party. Because you can't have a democracy with people like that getting away with it. Frank Peter, 9145. One Nation is the only Australian political party to do live streams. Keep it up. Try doing live streaming in the evenings when people get home from work. That's an idea, but I might not survive for long because my wife not too happy about the hours I work as it is. I heard Carl had a vax booster and antidepressant after your questions. Dr. Carl, I thought you meant Carl Stefanovic. Yeah, Dr. Carl, I couldn't tell you, mate. One thing, I learned a few more things about Dr. Carl. I challenged him and a few others to a debate. From memory, he knocked me back, and then he said, he accepted my challenge. This is 2014, I'm guessing, 2013, 14, 15. And then he was in Brisbane, and he asked me to come and see him because he wanted to tell me why he was going to knock me back. So he knocked me back, accepted, and then knocked me back. That's from memory. And he spent 45 minutes knocking me back. One of the core things of science is scientific debate. You debate the science. And but one thing I did learn, a couple of things I learned, was that he's very, very bright and quick, but very good at deflecting and diverting. And the number of times he would answer a question, if it was a difficult question, he would just bring up an interesting scientific fact, not even connected with it, but just, he's an entertainer. He's not a scientist. Scientists follow the scientific process. Dr. Carl doesn't follow the scientific process from what I've seen. But he's a scientist. He's a science educator, not a science educator. He's a science communicator. He's a showman. And that showed through. Why don't the radical, this is Dorothy Cutler, why don't the radical Muslims that are speaking hate get arrested? I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe no one's making a formal complaint to the Australian Federal Police or to their state police. But you know, Labor enacted two sets of laws. One was 2010 and the other one was 2025, 24, 25. They could have stopped the Bondi massacre, but it didn't, because they're not enforcing it. They will selectively enforce these controls on people they want to shut down. That's what they'll do. And they don't want to upset Muslims. They don't want to upset Islam, because they rely on so many of their key members of parliament getting voted in by Muslims. And the interesting thing is that we have Muslims in our party, members. We have Muslims who support us, who are members of our party, because Muslims, good Muslims, are genuine conservatives, especially about family matters. They're really strong on conservative values. So that's a wonderful thing. Hot lemon and honey drink. I try that sometimes. It doesn't seem to work. Maybe it's just me. Thanks, Lexi. Senator, I'm still worried that those behind the pandemic will get away scot-free. We are worried about that too, but we're working against it, secret agent. We are working very hard against it. We keep a continual watch on it. We give an update every few weeks on what we've found, and now we've got a hell of a lot of really powerful material coming out in May. It's starting to open up around the world. And we'll keep going until we get it. If you get in, that's Global Triathlon Network. If you get in, how about a Canberra bureaucrat clean-out? They earn far too much and do nothing. You're absolutely right. The chief of the Australian Defence Force earns double what his equivalent in chief as chief of the American Defence Force earns. They have nuclear weapons over there. They have so many more airmen, seamen, and army, and marines. They have so many more aircraft carriers, so many more ships, so many more planes, so many more weapons, so many more bases around the world, and he earns half what our guy earns. And fortunately, another really important change over there in America is that the American Defence Forces are now referring to their fighters as warriors, which is exactly what they should be. Not DEI controlled, but warriors. That's exactly what we need to call our fighters. But we need to clean out, that's for sure. And you know that the level of the number of bureaucrats per head of population in this country is one of the highest in the world, and the amount we pay them is the highest in the world. And we are doing something about it. We're getting the data. We expose them. And we'll keep doing that. And if we get into government, or when we get into government, we will stop it. Yes, Harry, I agree. Vote one nation all the way. And remember to number every box, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right through to the end. Otherwise your vote won't be counted. Any more questions coming? I think we've been going a fair while. Wow. One more question? No more questions. I want to thank Ryan for helping me. This is a good system. Sorry about the delay at the start, but we thought we'd nailed it. We've been fine-tuning this for a while now. We've had to boost the capacity of our computers, excuse me. Anyway, that's the weekly wrap-up from the only opposition party, the only true party, the sensible party, the only party listening to and serving the Australian people. Have a great weekend after enjoying tomorrow at work. See you at the Medicinal Cannabis Conference tomorrow.